Hello everyone and welcome again to Minimalist Gourmet, where today I'll be teaching you how to make cornmeal muffins. And we're going to turn that flavor dial up to 11 by adding in a recipe on how to make some honey butter to go on top. So let's get started. We'll begin with 1 cup of yellow cornmeal. They are cornmeal muffins after all. And to this we're going to add 1 cup of all-purpose flour right on top. We have 1 teaspoon of baking powder, a half a teaspoon of baking soda, and a half a teaspoon of salt. We're going to add this right here on top and get a whisk so we can mix up all of our dry ingredients here really well. We're going to set this aside and move on to our wet ingredients. In a large cup or bowl, we'll assemble our wet ingredients. First off, we're going to put 1/2 cup, that's 1 stick of butter melted in. Next, we have 1/3 of a cup sugar, and yes, sugar is considered a wet ingredient in this case. Pour that right in on top, get out our whisk, and give this a really nice mix until everything is well incorporated together. I like to mix up at each stage here for the wet ingredients. I think it works a little bit better. Next up, we have 2 eggs, which very importantly are at room temperature. You do not want to be handling cold ingredients in this recipe. Simply crack in our eggs and mix it just as before. Our final wet ingredient is going to be 1 cup of room temperature buttermilk. Just like everything else, it needs to be room temperature. If you don't have buttermilk available where you live, you can take a regular cup of milk, add 1 tablespoon of vinegar in, stir it, and allow it to sit on your counter for about 5 minutes. That'll work as a decent substitute. Whichever one you're using, we're going to go ahead and pour this right on top of our mixture here for our wet ingredients. And as you can guess, we are going to mix this until it's thoroughly incorporated, and that will finish off all of our wet ingredients. And to our dry ingredients, we are going to pour our wet ingredients right on top. Now remember, we pre-mixed our dry ingredients and wet ingredients so that at this stage, we really don't have to mix this very hard to make sure everything is well integrated. It'll come out a little gummy if you overwork it, so try to mix this until it's just hydrated and all the dough has absorbed all that moisture. It should look just like this. Once you reach this stage, you can stop mixing. Preparing our muffin tins, I like to use these little silicone cupcake liners. They work very well and stick to nothing. Paper will work just as well if you have those on hand. If you're not using liner and you have a straight tray, make sure to lube this up with a little bit of no-stick spray or butter. They both work fine. Now we'll fill up our muffin tins. You want to fill these relatively full, about 3/4 of the way full, because unlike, say, a cake batter that you would put into a muffin tin like this and only fill about 2/3 or maybe half the way full, these won't rise very much, so don't be shy. You can go ahead and fill them up fairly generously. Alternatively, if you don't want to form these into muffins, you can absolutely pour this batter into a greased 8x8 or 9x9 baking pan and cook it exactly the same way. There'll be no difference. The measurements for the recipe that I've given you today will produce exactly 12 full muffins just like this. Bake in a preheated 400-degree oven for about 20 to 25 minutes. And the best part is while these are cooking, that'll give us just enough time to make our honey butter. For our honey butter, we're going to need 1/2 a cup, that's 1 stick of butter, softened at room temperature. Or if you're like me and forgot to take it out early enough, you can microwave it on defrost for a little bit until it's nice and soft. To this, we're going to add honey. Now here I'm going to be adding a 1/2 cup of honey, which means it's a 1-to-1 ratio. However, if you want this a little less sweet, you can start out at, say, a 1/4 cup of honey. That works great, and you can always add a little bit more. It's completely onto your tastes. So start at a 1/4 cup and go up to a 1/2 cup if you like a little sweeter. Pro tip, if you spray your measuring cups and measuring spoons with a little bit of no-stick spray before you measure out stuff like honey, molasses, and other things that are sticky like that, it really helps everything not stick and saves you a little bit of time and cleanup. Last but not least, we have 1/4 teaspoon of salt, which will really help these flavors pop. Additionally, you can add, say, a 1/4 teaspoon of ground cinnamon, the zest of an orange. Those will go great. Go ahead and put everything into a bowl and start mixing with a whisk. You want to continue to mix until everything is homogeneous. Once it comes together and looks a little bit like this, you know you're done. And about 20 minutes later, we're going to pull our muffins, and they look delicious. I checked to make sure they were done by placing a wooden skewer right in the center, pulled it out, and it came out clean. It's going to be hard, but you do want to wait about 10 to 15 minutes before you eat them. So they're still warm, but not super crumbly. All there is left to do now is slather on a huge dose of this delicious honey butter and enjoy. This goes great with barbecue, picnics, or heck, even on its own. Guys, it really is just that easy to make these delicious cornmeal muffins and honey butter in your house today. Thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it, and I hope to see you all again here real soon on another episode of Minimalist Gourmet.